All right, here we go. One of the more famous stories of the Greek period of time during the Persian War, specifically the Battle of Marathon. So, first of all, a quick little background as to what led to the battle, and then some details on the battle itself, and something cool we get all the way until today. So, this is part of what is called the Persian War. The Persian War started around the year 500 BC, and everything you see in green on this map represents the Persian Empire at that time. Greece, of course, is where you can see Greece on the map here, but one of the things that I always tell my students is Greece is tiny compared to the entire Persian world. And what had happened is in the years prior to the war, as the Persians expanded, there were many Greek city-states right here on the coast of Asia Minor, what we call Ionia. And basically, over some time, this is kind of the super quick version of the story. Over some time, these Greek city states that lived in Ionia got tired of being controlled by the Persians. This leads to what we call the Ionian Revolt. And when the Ionian Revolt took place, there was some discussion in a very famous Greek city of Athens back on the Greek mainland. I'll show you a close up map of the Greek mainland in a second. And long story short, the Athenians agreed to help the Ionian Revolt, and the Persian Emperor at the time was not happy. And this eventually is going to trigger the entire war. It's again more detailed. Some people said, the Ionian Revolt had nothing to do with why the Persian War happened. It was just, an excuse for the Persian Emperor. So who is this Persian Emperor, and what's the deal with this Battle of Marathon that I really want to get into? So the Persian emperor at the time was a man named Darius or Darius the First, and he saw an opportunity about the year 490 BC now. After the Ionian Revolt, after the Athenians had helped, to take his forces, which were massive in numbers, and go after the Greek world, and specifically Athens, right? He wanted to break Athens. And so at this point, the Athenians had a military man by the name of Miltiades, you see here, and he had about 10,000 men, Athenians, or about another 1,000 men from another Greek city-state. And what's interesting is the Spartans, who were supposed to kind of be involved in this battle, never showed up. So there was 10,000 Athenians, about another 1,000 other Greeks at this Battle of Marathon, but the Spartans, who are known as being the most fiercest warriors, never came. Meanwhile, the Persians, they were led by a few generals. Usually the name I use is a man named Datis, and he had about 30,000 men. So right off, you see that the Persians completely outnumbered the Greeks because the Spartans, who were the fiercest soldiers, didn't show up. So what's going to happen? Well, it's going to be a massacre, but it's not going to be a massacre for the Greeks. It's going to be a massacre for the Persians. And so the question is, how did all this happen? So if we look at our map of where it's all taking place, this is Athens. You can see Athens I'm highlighting over here. And this is the battle site of Marathon, right? So it's not fought in Athens, right? So what happened was, as the Persian forces were crossing the Aegean Sea, the Greeks, specifically Miltiades, saw opportunity to attack the Persians at Marathon instead of just waiting for them to come to Athens and have a fight there. And so this is what ends up happening. You see this kind of image of the kind of the details of the battle. The Persians actually did not have their cavalry forces at the time. And when Miltiades found out about that, he saw that as a good opportunity. That was one of the concerns. And so what he decided to do, and you can see there in the blue and the red, the Greeks and the Persians in the red, and the Greeks in the blue, is he launched the attack. And what Miltiades was basically trying to do is thin out his center, take his forces, and basically outflank the Persians. And you can see this is also right along the coast. One of the more interesting things that I bring up a lot in these battles that the Greeks and the Persians are fighting in is the geography. Even though the Greeks were completely outnumbered, they had the home field advantage. They knew the terrain, and I always say in any war, it's easier to defend than attack. And so in this case, that the Persians were the ones sailing across the Aegean Sea, they were going to the Greek mainland. The Athenians knew the geography well, and the Persians basically start to panic, right? As the Greeks surround them, and the middle of the line broke. The wings, I should say, of the Persians begin to crumble. what ends up happening, they panic and they try to flee back onto their boats. There are about 6,400 Persians who are killed at the Battle of Marathon. By comparison, there were about 192 Greeks, right? So 192 Greeks, 6,400 Persians, and then the Persians basically had to get on their boats, and eventually, this leads them to going back home. Now, this does not end the whole conflict with the Greeks and the Persians, because what ends up happening is that the Persians are going to regroup 10 years later. They're going to fight another battle under another emperor, very famous Battle of Thermopylae, movie The 300. But at least in this particular battle, the Greeks were again able to kind of outmaneuver the Persian forces, surround them by thinning their center, and by doing this, they had a great victory. Now, there's one more cool little story about this, because as this battle raged on, one of the Greeks left the battle site and he went from Marathon to Athens. And he went from Marathon here again to Athens to deliver the message that they're victorious. Apparently, the story goes, the legend goes, he gets there, he yells Nike. Nike is the Greek word for victory, and then he drops dead of exhaustion because he ran so far. Now, how far did he run? Well, about 26 miles, the length of a marathon. And so this is why you get the marathon today. So it's a pretty significant battle in the course of the Greek-Persian War, and it's also one of those battles that, if had gone differently, and if the Persians had managed to win this battle, they probably could have walked right into Athens, sacked Athens right there and then, and the entire story of Greek history may be very different. The entire story of Western civilization history may be very different. So I think it's a pretty cool little battle to learn about. Again, there's other elements to this whole Persian War, but I just wanted to do kind of a brief little lecture on the Battle of Marathon, and now you know where you get a marathon from. All right, hope everyone found that interesting. Thank you. Have a great day.